BBSs are near and dear to us. In our younger days, we were quite adept at operating and modifying a popular BBS platform called Renegade. However, it's been roughly 3 decades since our BBS skills were at their peak. And recently we were playing around with Renegade and we discovered just how much of that esoteric knowledge that we've lost. So in order to brush up on our BBS sysop skills, we're going to dive into something called Telegard BBS. Telegard has a long and storied history with multiple authors at different time periods that each left their own unique impression on the software. For today, our goal is to get something reminiscent of a mid-1990s BBS complete with door games and working file transfers. Setting up 1990 software on a 486 with DOS would indeed offer an authentic experience. Yet it lacks convenience while we get back up to speed. Instead, we're opting for a virtual machine setup. After experimenting with Windows 95, which involved navigating various challenges and shortcomings, we have decided to use Windows XP instead. This operating system is particularly advantageous because it supports a wide range of Windows applications and seamlessly runs DOS programs. This capability stems from the integration of the Windows XP's Virtual DOS Machine, or NTVDM, which emulates a 16-bit DOS environment, ensuring compatibility and functionality for older DOS applications. XP also gives us an easy option to set up a Telnet server interface for the BBS. And now that we have Windows XP running, let's go ahead and get started. We're first checking out the Telegard files from software.bbsdocumentary.com, which is a great resource for finding lots of BBS software. When we're looking through the versions available here, it's a little bit confusing to decipher these version numbers and Gamma pre-releases, but we're looking for something stable. This one looks like a newer release, 3.09 Gamma 2, with a release date in 1998, so let's go with that one. After extracting the files, let's check the README. We thought we were getting 3.09, but this says 3.10 at the top of the file. It tells us to print the install.doc, which we probably won't do, but let's go ahead and take a look at the file itself. So looking at the requirements, one thing to note is that we need a fossil driver. A fossil driver is an interface in DOS that software like a BBS would use to talk to a modem. This looks kind of complicated. We're copying the files over to a new folder and then running install. And now we can run telegard.exe. And great, we get runtime error 200. But we recall this is a common issue with DOS Turbo Pascal applications on modern computers. There is a patch called TP patch available to fix this, so let's give that a try. So let's patch it. Oh, cool. Looks like it worked. So we'll press enter to continue. Archiver utilities. This sounds important, so let's make a note of the archiver utilities and the protocol utilities, and let's save the notes. And we'll make a note about indexing the language file. So what do we do next after running the install? Let's try running it with the -L option for the local mode. This is the wait for caller screen, and this is the screen that you would see showing that the BBS is ready to accept a call, obviously. From here, we can hit escape to get commands for getting into the configuration. Let's look at the system config. BBS site information, we'll set a name for our BBS and a fake phone number and location. And fortunately, it comes with password encryption disabled, which is our preferred way of running a BBS, because of course, the sysop needs to be able to read everyone's password. Let's see if we can do a local logon. And welcome to a new Telegard BBS. We're really in, and it's telling us what files we can use to start customizing the board to really make it our own. Here are the bulletins, and let's take a look at the Telegard 3.0 features. It's notable that Telegard supports a JAM message-based format, which is helpful for integrating message utilities to work with FidoNet and other Echo Mail message networks. Notably, Renegade did not use a standardized message-based format, so there were less options and utilities available for sysop managing messages. We can see that Telegard supported several drop file formats. This is how a sysop would integrate the BBS with external games, or otherwise known as door games. Different doors supported different drop file formats. We're now at the BBS main menu, and so let's hit I to see info on the BBS. It thinks we're in DOS version 5.0, and the usage expires in negative 9,000 days. Perfect. And here's a BBS list. It's a list of Telegard systems from back in the day. Okay, so Telegard is working. Now, how do we actually log off? We don't see it on the main menu, but G is the key to log off. So you hit G and then N to finish the log off. Now we're back at the wait for caller screen, and we can hit Q to quit Telegard. Now that we have Telegard working locally, if we run Telegard without any options, we get this error that it can't open a COM port. And we saw in the install doc that it needs a fossil driver to interact with a modem. So we're going to use NetFos, freeware from PC Micro. It provides a DOS fossil driver in Windows as well as a Telnet server to make our BBS available over Telnet. A 32-bit edition of Windows is recommended, and that's what we're using here with XP. So let's unzip net2bbs.zip. We're extracting it into the same folder. Now let's copy all this stuff into a new directory. We put all of the files into the new directory, and we unzipped net2bbs.zip. Now we need to install the DLL. We think we need to copy the DLL file into one of these directories, so let's copy it into Windows System 32. Let's look at net2bbs.ini. We can see that the batch file here will need to be updated once we look in the instructions more for Telegard. And we should probably just make sure our firewall is turned off completely. We need to look at these instructions to use the net2bbs telnet server. Let's look for the Telegard specific details. Okay, there's lots of info here about Telegard and Renegade. And apparently, Telegard performed faster than Renegade and offered true multi-node support. So it looks like we need to create a separate node directory as we want to support multiple nodes. And we'll need to make directories for nodes 1 through 4. We're editing the NF batch file and adding %1 to the end of the netfoss.com line. Now we need to edit net2bbs.ini to set the command to launch Telegard. And set the start path to the current node directory. For maximum file transfer speed, install the public domain zmodem as an external protocol in the BBS. We definitely want that, so let's download that. Let's make a protocol directory and we'll copy the files in. Let's see if it works. And it looks good. It says to run net2bbs.exe, so let's try it. And it is running. And now let's get a Telnet client. We're going to mysticbbs.com to download the netrunner Telnet client. It's a RAR file, so we're going to need WinRAR. Netrunner isn't launching, but it's not clear why. It doesn't run from the command line either, which is strange. Okay, so let's try something else. Okay, so we're going to try downloading syncterm. But it gives us an error as well. Okay, now we're going to try a different Telnet client called mtel or mtelnet from back in the day. Here we go. So let's add an entry in the phone book to connect to our local BBS. And let's try to connect. It says an installed version of Telegard has not been found. We wonder if that's maybe because net2bbs launched it in a different start directory. Let's edit net2bbs.ini and change the start path. We think we need to start in the directory where the Telegard config file is. Let's try again. Same error. We probably need to restart net2bbs to apply our change. Well, we got further. It looks like it is working. Let's log in now. It wants another new password, but it looks like we're making progress. We should turn off this password rotate feature. And here we can disable forced password updates. Let's try to log in again. And we're not forced through a password change again. We're at the main menu and this looks good. So let's go ahead and log off now. Let's try to set up Net2 BBS as a Windows service so that it will automatically start up when the system boots. Service installed. And going into the services applet, we can check the properties of the Net2 BBS service and set it to start automatically and make sure it's allowed to interact with the desktop. It looks like the service is working. And now we're finished with the Telnet server setup. Now that we have the Telnet server working, let's actually do something with the BBS. If you're new to BBSs, there are three primary functions that people use BBSs for: files, messages, and door games. There are, of course, other functions as well, but every BBS back in the day had at least two of those three things built out for users. Files and messages were separated into areas, and areas were put into groups, also known as conferences. We want to get file transfers working, but first that means we need to set up a file transfer protocol. The file transfer protocol handles transmission of a file between the BBS server and the user's client. Looking at the system config, we don't see any protocols here, but we found it here in the system manager. It looks like the system manager is how you control a lot of the primary functions of the BBS. Let's look at the protocol manager and we can see that there are not any defined. Most BBSs supported several protocols such as X modem and Y modem, but as BBS users, we only recall using Z modem. Let's try inserting a new protocol, and we can import a PDF, a protocol definition file. Interesting, there are three different Z modem options here from DSZ, GSZ, and ICE-Z modem. Let's pick number 8, GSZ Z modem. Let's modify it to see the settings. E and F here are the upload and download commands. Those are probably what we need to start figuring out. And we'll see if this is explained in the docs. We can see the upload and download commands defined, but not much helpful info. We can see ~CP in the command, but that isn't specifically defined in the docs. It probably stands for COM port. So let's note the existing commands and see how we can adapt them. Let's look at the public domain Z modem, zm.exe. It has RZ and SZ. Here are the options. We'll need -C to set the port, and we'll want to use -F for fossil driver. We're now entering new upload and download commands. And there are three existing file areas. 0 and 1 should work for users to upload to. We're now going to log in and test out a file transfer. Let's hit U for upload, and we can select Z for Z modem. We're prompted to pick a file to upload, and it seems to transfer, but we see error upload file from Telegard. It says it rejected one file, but why? Maybe it didn't like the .exe extension, so let's try it with a text file. But we get the same error. It looks like a log file was not created in the protocol directory. So let's check the sysop log file. It shows upload error transfer log not found. After the last upload error, we thought Telegard wasn't configured correctly for the public domain Z modem, so we thought we'd try using GSZ instead. We're now back to the Telegard predefined protocol settings for GSZ, so let's see how this works. Trying a new upload, we immediately get this error: the system cannot open COM1. And that is because GSZ is trying to talk to COM1 directly, not using the fossil driver. Let's check the GSZ docs, and it talks about how we can call it through a batch file which would disable X00, which is a fossil driver. So it sounds like GSZ simply doesn't support a fossil driver, which we need particularly with NetFOSS and the Telnet server. Let's try running a Telegard node 2 locally. But we get an error that the node number is invalid, so let's try creating it. Going into the system manager, we can copy node 1 to node 2, and then to node 3 and node 4. Another issue is that our file areas have these paths defined, but they don't exist, so let's create those. And we did another test, but creating these directories did not fix uploads. We're configuring public domain Z modem again, and after some more testing, we found a combination of settings that actually worked. On the ZM command line, we're defining the log file explicitly. In the Telegard docs, there's a lot going on, and we found we do want batch enabled, otherwise Z modem doesn't tell Telegard the file name that we're uploading. These result codes are important, and in batch mode, Telegard gets the Z modem result code from the log file defined in K. We are again explicitly defining the log file name here instead of using a variable. Let's telnet in again and try to upload a file. And it works. It's asking us to enter a description of the file. Thanks for the upload. Now we can use a special sysop command of /v to validate the upload, which makes it available for users. And it's in the new uploads area. So we can move it to general files. And now we can see it in the list of files. So let's try to download it. And it's working. We now have file transfers working. Our next journey is to get a door game to work. Doors are programs external to the BBS itself, and there were hundreds of different games available for BBSs. We're loading the Break Into Chat website, which is a fantastic wiki and blog about BBS door games. Let's check out Lemonade. It looks interesting, so we'll download it. Let's take a look at the documentation to see how to install it. We're running lemon.exe space utility and are greeted with a simple setup menu. Now we're going to need to figure out where the drop file would be located from Telegard. This is a file that the door game reads from the BBS to get info about the user. Looking around in Telegard, the door game would be set up as a menu entry. Oh, we have an existing menu from main for online programs, so let's go there. Here's a sample command with a door.sys drop file. Let's modify it. It's not clear what the tilde-cn variable means, but it's probably the node number, and we're not having any luck finding it in the Telegard docs. We'll make a guess for the door.sys location and just see what happens. We'll make a batch file to start the door based on the example here, with echo on so we can hopefully see any useful output. And we'll want to use the /fd option to use a fossil driver. Let's hit 3 to try it. And we can see an error about reading the system file, but we're now finding the door.sys file in the Telegard temp1 directory. So let's update the Lemonade config and try again. And here we are in the door game. Pressing H loads the help file where we're told to press N to go to the next day. The high temperature is 92 today, but there's a 68% chance of rain. So it looks like we didn't sell any lemonade and we've lost 20 cents today. Bummer. The door mentions writing a bulletin, which is a text file that the sysop could make accessible from the BBS or even insert it into the logon sequence. What if we try to play again? Oh, sorry, you are out of place for today, so we'll have to come back tomorrow. There you have it, a fully functioning Telegard BBS. It took quite a lot more effort than we initially thought, especially getting the file transfers working. But being a sysop is quite a lot of work. And if you were a kid in the 90s, you probably spent countless hours learning all of this through experimentation and just talking with other BBS sysops. But now that we have Telegard working, we're thinking about what to do next. Feel free to drop a comment below with any of your BBS memories or what you think would be an interesting thing to do with BBSs today. We might set up a computer like a 486 as a dedicated BBS machine and get it working with a real modem for dial-in access. Until then, thank you for watching the Parallel Port.